Brought to you by Thomas Allgaier and Frennis. This edition highlights key LinkedIn posts on social selling in weeks 11 and 12. Frennis supports clients with identifying target attendees for events, crafting outreach that cuts through the noise, and driving qualified registrations through strategic LinkedIn engagement. You can find more info in the description.
So imagine logging into your dashboard tomorrow morning, right? And you see that you just lost like 95% of your reach.
Oh, wow. Pure panic. Just absolute panic.
Exactly. But today we're actually going to look at why one B2B creator experienced that exact drop. And instead of panicking, he actually celebrated. Because get this, his revenue shot up by 150%.
Wait, really? Revenue went up 150% while reach tanked.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, if you are listening to this and you're trying to generate pipeline right now, you absolutely need to understand why that happened. So in this deep dive, we are unpacking the reality of what works in social selling today. And we're basing this entirely on the top trends and conversations happening right now across the platform from calendar weeks 11 and 12.
Right. We've got some incredible insights from several strategists to get through.
And just a quick note before we jump into the deep end here. We're exploring the data and opinions shared by these folks in the past 2 weeks. Our goal isn't necessarily to, endorse every specific viewpoint, but simply to break down the ideas they're bringing to the table. That way you can decide what actually works for your own strategy.
Which is super important because, the most dominant conversation over the last couple of weeks has been about this massive fundamental shift. It's like the ground just shifted beneath the feet of every B2B marketing professional.
Oh, completely. The era of that whole reach-first thinking, it's essentially dead. People are waking up, checking their stats, and seeing their distribution has just completely plummeted.
And the hysteria around this has been pretty wild to watch.
Yeah, it really has. Everyone was talking about this rumored AI algorithm update. I think people were calling it 360 Brew.
Yes, 360 Brew.
You had these massive panic threads about how 360 Brew was this omnipotent AI that was just deliberately tanking everyone's impressions overnight.
Right, which is where we really need to inject a serious reality check. Because if we look at the research from Suzanne Bungart and Britta Behrens, they dug into this and essentially debunked the whole panic.
So it wasn't real.
No, 360 Brew was never actually rolled out as an update. It was literally just a highly complex, theoretical, technical research paper published by engineers.
Okay, so the boogeyman everyone was terrified of wasn't even real. But, the drop in reach is definitely real. People aren't imagining that part. So if it wasn't 360 Brew, what actually changed under the hood?
Well, what really took effect is a new two-stage ranking architecture, and the mechanics of this are just fascinating. In the past, the system largely operated on a really simple engagement loop.
Like it just counted likes.
Yeah, it counted your likes and comments quickly to decide if a post was good enough to show to more people. But now it acts much more like a strict semantic matchmaker.
Okay, let's break down what a two-stage ranking architecture actually means in practice.
Stage one is essentially an ingestion and profiling phase, right?
Exactly.
The system isn't just looking at the text of your post anymore. It is actively cross-referencing that text against your historical profile data to look for congruence.
Precisely. It reads the context.
Yeah.
So if your profile explicitly states that you are, say, a B2B SaaS infrastructure expert, but you decide to post a highly emotional viral story about your morning coffee routine.
Which people do all the time, by the way.
All the time. But now the algorithm immediately sees a semantic mismatch. It basically says, hey, this content does not align with the established expertise of this user, and it halts the distribution right there.
Wow. And then what happens in stage two?
Then in stage two, it heavily prioritizes dwell time. It measures how long people actually stop scrolling to read your text rather than just rewarding a quick, thoughtless vanity like as they scroll past. So if I'm understanding this right, the platform basically went from being a noisy, crowded digital bazaar where anyone with a megaphone could gather a massive crowd to an exclusive VIP matchmaking service where there's a very strict bouncer checking your credentials at the door. And the bouncer is checking if you actually belong in that specific conversation.
That is exactly the dynamic. Broad virality is essentially dead for B2B.
Yeah.
But if we pull back and look at the strategic implications of that, it's actually a massive advantage. Which brings us back to that incredible data point shared by Christian Kraus.
Oh, right. The 95% drop. Because for most creators, losing 95% of your impressions sounds like a total career-ending disaster.
I think so, yeah.
But you said he reported that his revenue increased by 150% during that same period. How does the math on that even work?
It completely comes down to high conversion relevance replacing empty reach. So the 5% of impressions he retained, they weren't random. the system stopped showing his highly technical content to random scrollers.
Like the people who might hit, but would never ever actually buy his services.
Exactly. Instead, it served his content exclusively to his exact target buyers. It forced this hyper-concentration of his ideal audience.
Okay, but there's a massive catch to that, isn't there? That hyper-concentration only works if your existing network actually matches your ideal customer profile, your ICP.
Yep, you hit the nail on the head.
Because if your network is full of random connections, the algorithm gets incredibly confused.
Yeah.
And Fredrik Jerstrom had a brilliant post about this exact realization. He noticed his reach was tanking, so he did a deep audit of his network.
And what did he find?
He found that only 35 to 40% of his connections were actually in his ICP.
Oh, wow. Which perfectly explains everything from the algorithm's perspective. Think about it. If the system runs a test by showing your post to a sample of 100 people in your network, and 65 of those people are totally irrelevant to your topic, they are going to scroll right past it.
Right.
So the system sees that low dwell time, assumes the post is low quality, and just kills the reach entirely.
Exactly. So Bjurstrom realized he had to completely change his connection strategy. He had to stop just accepting every single request to boost his follower count and become highly intentional to get that ICP concentration up to 70%.
That's a huge shift.
It is.
Yeah.
Which is an urgent action item for you listening right now. Audit your own profile today. Just look at the last 100 people you connected with. Are they actually your buyers? Because if they aren't, they are actively dragging down your algorithmic distribution.
That's such a great takeaway. And if we follow that logic to the next step, if the platform is acting as this strict bouncer evaluating your relevance, the natural question becomes, well, what is the password?
Right. How do you actually write content that proves to both the machine and the buyer that you belong in the room?
The answer we are seeing across the board is that depth has completely replaced volume. Broad emotional hooks that try to cast a massive net to appeal to everyone, those are actively penalized now. Niche depth is the absolute requirement.
And Michael Ekby had a fantastic breakdown on the mechanics of this. He pointed out that the algorithm now gives 3 to 5 times more processing weight to your first 2 sentences.
Wait, really? 3 to 5 times?
Yeah. It is literally parsing your hook to decide your distribution fate right then and there. And from a natural language processing standpoint, that makes perfect sense. These semantic parsing models need to categorize the core topic of a document immediately.
Right. So if you start your post with a generic, vague statement like, I learned a major leadership lesson today, the machine categorizes you as just general storytelling.
Exactly. But if your hook is, B2B SaaS founders making under $5 million face this specific enterprise sales trap, the machine immediately tags the specific industry, the revenue band, and the problem. You have to call out the specific audience immediately.
And this demand for specificity ties directly into how you position your entire brand, too. Carolina Posma offered some really tough love on this exact issue. She reviewed a profile that used a headline like, recruitment expert, 20-plus years experience.
Ouch. Yeah, that's broad.
Right. She pointed out that this kind of vague positioning makes you completely invisible today. Your ideal client is never looking for a generic expert. They're looking for someone who solves their highly specific problem.
Terry Heath echoed that beautifully, actually. He issued a really strong warning to niche businesses. Stop watering down your language to appeal to the masses.
Yes.
If you use specialist language, you attract specialists. When you oversimplify your terminology to sound accessible to everyone, you actively lose the exact highly qualified people who would actually understand the value of what you sell.
That is so true. But we should probably pause here because this does raise a legitimate concern. If we are highly optimizing our first 2 sentences and ensuring our profiles are perfectly aligned with semantic tags, aren't we just turning social selling into an SEO game?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, are we just writing for machines now?
That is the danger, right?
Yeah.
It feels like we could just end up stuffing our hooks with keywords so the semantic matchmaker knows where to put us, and we just completely lose the human element.
It is a totally valid concern, but we have to look at the broader AI ecosystem outside of just this one platform. Jonathan Levy shared a piece of data that puts this completely in perspective. He noted that LinkedIn is currently the 2nd most cited domain by AI tools like ChatGPT and Perplexity.
Wait, the second most cited on the entire internet?
Yes, because these tools are hungry for professional, structured, verified data. So if you are posting original, educational, mid-length content consistently, these off-platform AI engines are literally mirroring your exact wording to answer user queries.
That's wild.
So you aren't just writing to appease a social media algorithm. You are actively feeding the intelligence engines that your buyers are increasingly using for their procurement research.
Okay, that completely reframes the objective. It means you can't just chase cheap dopamine hits or post generic motivational advice. Shoaib Ahmed was very direct about this in his analysis. He argued that if your content isn't actively creating persuasive offers and handling complex objections, you are just playing a high school popularity game. You have to use your content to scaffold actual trust.
Which provides a perfect pivot point, honestly. Let's say you've done everything right so far. You've audited your network. You've written a deeply specific niche-targeted post, and you've attracted that highly qualified buyer.
Right.
How do you actually interact with them without immediately ruining the relationship by sounding like a pushy salesperson?
This is where the actual selling part of social selling happens. And the consensus is shifting heavily toward relationship building in the trenches. Liam Darmody summed this up with a great rule. He said, commenting is the new posting.
It's a fundamental shift in behavior.
And it makes perfect sense when you think about the friction involved. Joining an existing conversation in the comments section just strips away the intimidation factor.
Yeah, you don't have to craft the perfect cold pitch or interrupt someone's day with a direct message.
Exactly. You just find a discussion your target buyer's already having, and you add a layer of value to it. It's how you uncover opportunities organically.
And Annabelle Pickens made an incredibly sharp observation regarding this. She noted that modern B2B pipeline generation depends entirely on a concept she calls visibility before outreach.
Visibility before outreach. I like that.
It's crucial to understand buyers today are essentially lurking. They are evaluating your expertise in the comments section of other people's posts long before they ever reply to your direct message or accept a meeting. They want to see how you think and how you handle professional discourse first.
Okay, let me throw a thought-provoking scenario at you that Florian Sommer posted about. He asked his audience this question. If the algorithm broke up with you tomorrow, meaning absolutely zero reach, zero likes, no distribution whatsoever, would your network still pick up the phone and call you?
Oh, wow. That is the ultimate brutal litmus test.
Isn't it?
It really tests whether you are actually doing social selling or if you're just doing content broadcasting.
Exactly. It strips away all the vanity metrics and forces you to look at whether you've actually built real one-on-one relationships or if you've just been renting temporary attention from a machine.
Martine Holtz emphasized this dynamic as well. He pointed out that impressions don't sign contracts. Trust does.
Trust, yes.
Having sky-high reach but incredibly low trust is the most expensive mistake you can make in B2B because you are basically burning through your total addressable market without converting anyone.
Right.
And a huge part of establishing that trust is how you handle the inevitable sales objections when those conversations finally move to a private channel.
Speaking of objections, I know Daniel Disney shared an analogy about handling objections recently, the bagel analogy. Let's unpack that because it totally shifts the mindset around pushback.
It is such a great visualization. So he uses a story about finishing a long race in Central Park. At the finish line, there is a table stacked with free bagels, but there is a massive winding line of tired people waiting to get one.
Okay.
Most people look at that massive line, sigh, and say, ugh, it's too long, I'm not waiting for that, and they just walk away. But one person in his story, it was Simon Sinek, just walks right up to the side of the table, reaches between two people who are waiting, and grabs a bagel.
So he just bypassed the line.
Yeah. He didn't focus on the line. He only focused on the bagel.
Okay, so to map that onto B2B sales, the massive line of people represents the defense mechanism of the buyer.
Yeah.
It's the standard pushback like, we don't have budget or now isn't a good time.
Yep.
And most salespeople hit that wall, see the obstacle, and just give up. They walk away.
Exactly. Disney is arguing that sales objections are not roadblocks. They are the bagels at the end of the race.
Oh, I see.
An objection simply means the buyer is still talking to you. It is them handing you a map to their actual underlying concern. If they say they don't have budget, they are really saying they need you to prove the ROI more clearly before they can secure funding.
The best sellers don't see the line. They just figure out how to navigate the obstacle to uncover the real opportunity.
Exactly.
So an objection is actually an invitation to deepen the trust. I really like that reframing. But let's look at the bigger structural picture here. Building individual trust through commenting and handling objections is incredibly powerful. But founder-led marketing, or relying on 1- or 2-star salespeople, has a hard ceiling.
For sure.
There are only so many hours in a day for one executive to be visible. To truly scale this, companies need to activate their entire team.
They absolutely do. But the internal corporate language around how we do that is rapidly changing. Andy Lambert suggests we need to retire the term employee advocacy entirely.
Which is completely fair, because advocacy sounds like a chore. It sounds like an HR mandate where corporate is forcing you to do a favor for the brand. It just feels incredibly unnatural.
Right, it frames it as a corporate obligation rather than a personal benefit. So Lambert suggests replacing the concept with personality-led growth.
Personality-led growth.
Yeah, the focus shifts entirely to empowering the individual's unique voice and career, which then naturally creates a halo effect that lifts the company brand.
And when you look at the math of personality-led growth, it is just undeniable. Taz Burweiss laid out the numbers clearly. A founder might have a very respectable, highly curated network of, say, 5,000 connections.
Which is great.
It is. But if you can get just 10 employees actively engaged and posting combined, they bring a network of 25,000 connections. That scales the surface area of your trust exponentially. You turn a single corporate megaphone into a massive choir.
That's a great way to put it. And we saw a perfect real-world execution of this shared by Utsav Patel at Supergrow. They launched their internal program and actually managed to hit 100% adoption in week 1.
Week 1. Every single team member started posting.
Every single one. And the secret was that they completely ignored virality. They didn't ask their team to write viral thought leadership. They just focused strictly on habit building and consistency. Start incredibly small, focus on the behavior, and build the muscle over time.
But, anytime you talk about getting 100% of a workforce to start producing content, we have to address the elephant in the room.
Automation.
Yes, automation. Because the temptation for a marketing director is to just buy an AI tool, generate the posts for the employees, and set up auto-commenting scripts to guarantee that activity.
Which is the single most dangerous thing a marketing team can do right now. Richard Vanderbleen issued a very stark warning about this specific tactic. Using browser extensions to fake engagement or scrape profiles is getting accounts permanently restricted or completely banned.
Yeah, let's explain why that happens, specifically regarding browser fingerprinting. LinkedIn isn't just looking at the text you post. They are actively monitoring how your browser behaves.
Right.
If their security systems detect superhuman clicking speeds or invisible background script scraping profile data faster than a human could read, they flag the account's digital fingerprint. A browser extension is essentially like picking the lock on the front door.
Wow.
So what is the alternative if a company wants to scale safely?
The architecture of the tool matters immensely here. Vanderblom points out that the safe route is using approved APIs. He mentioned tools like Narify as an example of an official partner. An API is essentially a designated VIP side door that the platform officially allows software to use. It integrates safely without triggering those security flags and risking your entire team's accounts.
Okay, so technically, you can use approved tools to stay out of algorithm jail.
Yeah.
But let me push back on the broader strategic philosophy of using AI here.
Sure.
Even if we use safe APIs, if we give every single employee an AI teammate to write their posts and draft their comments, aren't we just flooding the internet with an absolute sea of bland, identical, robotic thoughts? Doesn't that destroy the personality part of personality-led growth?
That is the exact risk that Noam Nisan addressed. His core argument is that AI can help you package an idea. It can structure your post, fix your grammar, and make it readable for a digital audience. But it cannot give you an original point of view. The blandness we see on the feed, it doesn't come from AI itself. It comes from lazy users who are outsourcing their actual thinking rather than just their writing.
So if you don't inject your own lived experience, like the specific friction you saw on a client call that morning, the AI has nothing real to work with.
Precisely. And Tim Hughes added some great nuance to this. He advocates for using what he calls AI agentic teammates. The goal isn't to set up a bot to blast generic noise into the void. It's to use AI to operate strictly within established brand guardrails.
Right.
The AI helps sales reps monitor massive feeds, synthesize complex information quickly, and draft the skeleton of a thoughtful comment. But the core insight, the actual value being added to the conversation, must come from the human rep. It's about using AI to scale your listening and your presence, not to replace your brain.
We have covered a massive amount of ground in this deep dive. We've gone from dissecting the semantic matchmaking of the new two-stage ranking architecture to understanding why niche depth is the only way to write, to the power of commenting before reaching out, and finally how to scale all of this through personality-led growth without falling into the automation trap.
We really have. It represents a completely new playbook for B2B professionals. The old tactics simply do not work anymore.
They really don't. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over. We have spent this entire deep dive talking about optimizing your profile and writing your content so that human buyers trust you.
Right.
We want to build relationships. We want to be the person calmly handing out the bagel at the end of the race.
Yeah.
But as we discussed earlier, AI engines like Perplexity and ChatGPT are increasingly scanning this platform to answer complex B2B queries, literally mirroring our exact words. Are we fast approaching a reality where your primary social selling target isn't a human decision maker at all, but the AI assistant they've tasked with doing their procurement research?
That is a fascinating question because it completely redefines who or what our target audience actually is moving forward.
Something to keep in mind as you go audit your own profile today. If you enjoyed this episode, new episodes drop every 2 weeks. Also, check out our other editions on account-based marketing, field marketing, channel marketing, MarTech, go-to-market, and AI in B2B marketing.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Hit that subscribe button, and we'll catch you on the next one.